Spiral galaxies are found everywhere astronomers have looked for them. Spiral galaxies are one in a lot of different types of galaxies. The three most common types of galaxies are elliptical, spiral, and irregular. Irregular and spiral galaxies make up 60% of all found galaxies. They come in all sizes, big and small. The Milky Way, the Andromeda Galaxy, and the Triangulum Galaxy are only a few of the spiral galaxies in the local group, the group of galaxies including the Milky Way and the galaxies around it. As its name suggests, spiral galaxies are shaped like a spiral. The arms that make the spiral pattern takes millions of years to form. They have a bulge at their centers and a cloud of stars called a halo surrounding it. The arms tend to have younger, brighter stars. Edwin Hubble was the first person to describe spiral galaxies to the public in 1936. He described them in his book, The Realm of the Nebula. Before that, people and astronomers thought that spiral galaxies were a special nebula called a spiral nebula. Astronomers are still studying spiral galaxies and their arms. They have found other spiral galaxies like the Pinwheel Galaxy, and they have also divided them up into subcategories. Lynn and Frank Hsu introduced the density wave theory to describe spiral galaxies in 1964. The density wave theory says that the arms of the spiral galaxy are pretty much a density wave. When gas and dust come together, they form a denser region, the arms. The arms form stars, and those stars collapse in a cycle. The dense and less dense areas are called a density wave, like ocean waves have crests and troughs. The density waves always have predictable patterns of dense and less dense areas. Spiral galaxies are made up of billions of stars. There are young, hot, blue stars in the arms and cooler, redder stars in the middle of the galaxy. The bulge is made of stars packed together in the middle of the galaxy. It can be called the bulge, the center bulge, or the galactic bulge. The halo surrounds them both and is the least dense of the three. Spiral galaxies are made of stars which are made of helium, hydrogen, and a few other trace elements. They also have some gas and dust mixed in from dying or dead stars. Stars are always dying and new stars are always being made from the debris left behind. The spiral galaxy's arms rotate around the center bulge. Spiral galaxies usually have about 2 arms projecting from the galactic bulge, but some have more. The time it takes for the arms to revolve around the bulge once is called a galactic year. The galactic year varies in different spiral galaxies. The arm of the Milky Way makes one full revolution around the bulge every 225 million years. Over time, the arms get wound up, making the arms closer to the middle. When a spiral galaxy gets older, it will form a barred spiral galaxy. A barred spiral galaxy is a spiral galaxy that has a bar made of stars in it. Astronomers used to think that the Milky Way was a regular spiral galaxy, but recent data has caused them to think that the Milky Way is a barred spiral galaxy. Spiral galaxies are very interesting to know about. They're amazing to see pictures of. I chose spiral galaxies for my topic for a lot of reasons. First of all, the Milky Way is a spiral galaxy. In an episode of Carl Sagan's Cosmos, I saw a small section on the formation of the arms of spiral galaxies, and I wanted to learn more about them. I knew a little bit about spiral galaxies before I started studying it, but I'd never studied it in depth, and I wanted to learn more. There was also a lot of information on them, so I could have the resources to learn lots about them. When I read about them, they seemed cool. I was right about spiral galaxies being fun to learn about. Spiral galaxies in general remind me of a whirlpool in 2 ways. The first is because they resemble a gigantic whirlpool in the way they look. It looks like the huge whirlpool that I saw in the movie Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters, which I watched a few weekends ago. The second reason is because spiral galaxies are not solid. They have empty space between the stars. Water isn't solid either. You could stick your hand through both of them, if you're big enough and heat resistant for the galaxy. The gigantic supermassive black hole that some scientists think is in the center of some spiral galaxies reminds me of an extremely deep hole. If you fell into either of them, it would be hard to get out of. Also, you'd probably die. I think of this because I used to love this book called Toot and Puddle, Top of the World, when I was about 4 years old. Toot thinks Puddle might have fallen into a deep hole and couldn't get out. Toot goes out looking for Puddle and finds Puddle's footprints. I could tell you the whole book right now, but I don't want to. Don't worry, Puddle was okay. The gigantic galactic bulge at the center of galaxies reminds me of a huge bouncy ball for 2 reasons. The first is because it just looks like a giant bouncy ball. I have many bouncy balls at my house because I like collecting bouncy balls. I've seen pictures of the Milky Way and other galaxies, and I've seen the dense bulge. The second reason is because it looks like a ball when you dip it in water and then spin it on a string. All the water goes out spinning in different directions like the arms, and the ball is like the galactic bulge. Even though I haven't done it with water on a string, I have spun a bouncy ball for a serve and handball in Foursquare. Can you imagine how it would fling water off if it were wet? The rotation of the arms of the spiral galaxy reminds me of the swing rides you see at amusement parks. The swings get spun around and around the central part of the ride, bulge like the arms of spiral galaxies. Swing rides also vary in size, like Spiral Galaxies, and Six Flags has at least 2 different sized swing rides. I like to ride the big one called Sky Screamer because it goes up really high and you can see over the whole entire park. The fountain in the east courtyard at Gate reminds me of a spiral galaxy because the fountain is like the bulge and the pool is like the arms and the halo of the galaxy. Also, the fountain's 2 bowls that the water pours out of are circular, and that makes them look a little bit like the spiral in the spiral galaxy. Finally, the rocks in the fountain are like stars. Of course, the rocks would be too big for stars, but it still works as an analogy. The lights in both of the courtyards are like globular clusters because the lights are packed together like stars in a globular cluster. Of course, globular clusters have much more than 5 stars in each cluster, but there's nothing I can do about that. The collection of light fixtures are also like the globular clusters because they are pretty spread out like globular clusters. I learned a lot about spiral galaxies in the time I have studied them. I learned that the spiral galaxy's arms rotate around the galactic bulge. That period of time is called a galactic year. The Milky Way's galactic year is approximately 225 million years. Galaxies are made up of billions of stars. There are younger, hotter, brighter stars in the arms and older, cooler, dimmer stars in the bulge. Until 1936, everyone thought that spiral galaxies were a different kind of nebula called a spiral nebula. Along with irregular galaxies, spiral galaxies make up 60% of all found galaxies. The outer spiral arms spin slower than the inner ones, making the arms wrap up around the bulge. There are different types of spiral galaxies. A spiral galaxy forms a barred spiral galaxy when it grows older. If I listed all the things I learned, it would take up more time than you would want to listen to.